It is a Tuesday morning in early June, and you lift the kitchen trash can to take it out, and there they are. 3 of them. Brown quick, gone under the cabinet before your eyes can follow. You set the can down. You look at the counter. You look at the baseboard. You look at the gap behind the stove where the pipe goes into the wall. You already know. 1 roach in the open means 30 in the dark. 1 ant on the counter means a column of them behind the wall. 1 spider in the corner of the basement means a web city in every joint and rafter. 1 mouse dropping by the toaster means a family of them in the insulation above your ceiling. The creatures that share your house do not ask permission. They find a crack, they find a crumb, they find a warm, dark place, and they move in. And every spring in this country, the same scene plays out in 10 million kitchens. The call to the pest control company. The man who comes in a white truck with a tank on his back, the invoice for $200, $300, $400, and 3 weeks later they are back. New ants, new roaches, new webs in the same corner, because the man with the tank did not fix the reason they came. He just killed the ones he could find. Now, I want you to sit with this. There is a small orange box sitting in most kitchens in this country right now, behind the flour and beside the cornstarch, that costs less than $1 and has been quietly doing something the pest control industry would rather you did not figure out. Used the right way. Baking soda kills roaches, ants, silverfish, drainflies, and a dozen other household pests. Repels spiders. Disrupts the trails that bring ants back to your kitchen again and again, dries out and suffocates the soft-bodied creatures that feed on your pantry and your garden, drives mice to find a more comfortable house than yours. Not one of those jobs requires a contract. Not one of them requires a man in a white truck. Just the orange box, a few pantry partners, and the understanding of why it works. My name is Amos Stoltzfus. I am Amish, and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. My people have kept a clean house and a clean barn for generations without a pest control contract and without a cabinet full of poison sprays. Today I am going to walk you through how baking soda, used plain and used in combination with a few other simple ingredients, handles the most common household pests. Before I go further, for the folks who want all of this, every method I have shown on this channel, and the ones I have not gotten to yet, all in one place, I have put it together in a book at my website, AmosStoltzfus.com. I will not push it again in the video. If you want it, it is there, and I will be honest with you the whole way, the way I always am. The title of this video says, 30 Different Pests. That is a bold claim, and you deserve to know what holds up plain and what holds up with a fair word of explanation. Baking soda is not a single magic bullet. It works differently on different creatures, sometimes as a killer, sometimes as a repellent, sometimes as a disrupting agent, and sometimes only when it is paired with the right bait or barrier. I am going to tell you which pest gets which method and where the honest limits are so you use it correctly and it actually works. That is more useful than a promise that falls apart in your kitchen. Stay with me. Let me first tell you what baking soda actually does to a small creature. Because once you understand the mechanism, the rest of the methods make plain sense and you will not mix them up. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. You already know what it does in a bowl of batter. You add it to an acid, vinegar, or buttermilk or lemon juice, and it releases carbon dioxide gas. Bubbles rise. That same reaction, triggered inside a small creature, is what does the damage. Roaches, for example, have a digestive system that is very sensitive to rapid gas production. A roach that ingests baking soda and then takes in any moisture or acid, even from the food already in its gut, triggers that gas release inside itself. The gas builds faster than the creature can manage. It kills. This is not folk legend. The entomologists who study cockroach biology document this reaction plainly. The key is the bait. Baking soda by itself is not attractive to a roach. You have to bring her to it. Sugar is the oldest and best bait for this job. The roach smells the sugar, eats the bait, and takes the baking soda with it. That is the whole game. For ants, the mechanism is slightly different. Baking soda does not reliably kill an ant that ingests it in the same way it does a roach. But what it does do to ants is disrupt the chemical trail they lay with their bodies. Ants navigate by pheromone trails. A scout ant finds the sugar bowl, walks back to the colony leaving a chemical message, and then 100 ants follow that trail to your counter like a map. Baking soda, fine and powdery, spread across that trail, scrambles the chemical signal. The ants cannot read the path. They scatter, they circle, and many of them give up and go looking for a cleaner route. You have not killed the colony, but you have broken the bridge between the colony and your kitchen, and that alone cuts the visible infestation sharply. For soft-bodied insects like silverfish, drainflies, and certain pantry moths, baking soda works differently again. These creatures breathe and move through soft, permeable bodies. Fine dry baking soda powder, in the places they travel and hide, desiccates them. It pulls moisture from their bodies and they dry up, the same way diatomaceous earth works, though more gently. For spiders, the alkaline quality of baking soda in solution is what does the work. Spiders do not like alkaline surfaces. A baking soda wash on baseboards, window frames, and door thresholds leaves an alkaline residue they will not walk across if they can help it. It does not kill them the way it kills a roach, but it persuades them to find a less uncomfortable house. For mice, baking soda works not as a direct killer, but as a deterrent. Mice have extremely sensitive noses. The sharp alkaline smell of baking soda placed near their entry points and travel routes causes genuine discomfort. They do not like it. Given a choice between the gap behind your stove that smells like baking soda and the gap in the neighbor's foundation that does not, they choose the neighbor. Now let me walk you through the exact methods pest by pest so you know precisely what to do with the box in your pantry. The first and most important method is the roach bait. This is the one with the longest track record and the clearest science behind it. Here is the recipe, and I will tell it slow. Equal parts baking soda and plain white sugar. 1 tablespoon of each makes a good starting batch. Mix them together until they are blended. The sugar and the baking soda powder look nearly identical, which is exactly what you want. The roach cannot sort them apart. She eats both. You can add a 1/3 tablespoon of plain flour to give the bait a little body and make it easier to set in small piles without it scattering. That is the whole bait. 1 tablespoon baking soda, 1 tablespoon sugar, 1 tablespoon flour if you have it. Now, before you reach for something to write those ratios down, the tablespoon and the flour, you do not need to. Every measurement I just gave you and every ratio for every pest method I will walk through today is written down plain in the book at my website, the same one I mentioned at the start. These are things to look up when your hands are in the mixing bowl, not to scribble from a moving video. So put the pencil down and stay with me, because where you place this bait is the part most folks get wrong, and getting it wrong means the roaches never find it. Where to place the roach bait? Small piles no bigger than 1/4 teaspoon each, behind the stove, under the refrigerator, inside the cabinet under the sink, along the baseboard in the corner of the bathroom, in the gap where the pipe goes into the wall, behind the toilet. The roach lives in the dark, behind the heat, near the water. That is where the bait goes. Not on the counter, not in the open, in the narrow, dark, warm places where she actually walks at night. Replace the bait every few days. If it is damp or dissolved, it has done some work. Mix a fresh batch and put it back. Run this bait for 2 to 3 weeks and the roach population in a moderately infested house drops sharply. For a heavy infestation, 4 to 6 weeks of consistent baiting. The second method is the ant trail breaker. Take plain dry baking soda and sprinkle a fine line of it across every ant trail you can identify. The trail along the baseboard, the line coming in under the door frame, the path up the leg of the pantry shelf. Sprinkle it thick enough to make a visible pale line and leave it. Do not wipe it up. Do not sweep it. Let it sit. Then find where they are coming in, the actual crack or gap in the foundation, the gap around the pipe, the space under the door threshold, and pack baking soda into that gap. A dry powder poured into a gap and tamped in with a piece of cardboard or the eraser end of a pencil. This is not a permanent seal, but it disrupts the entry point long enough for the trail to break down. Pair this with a roach-style bait for ants. Same formula, equal parts baking soda and powdered sugar. Not granulated sugar because powdered sugar is finer and the ants pick it up more readily. Leave small piles near the entry points. The forager ants will carry some of it back to the colony. The third method is the silverfish and pantry pest barrier. Silverfish live in damp, dark places. The bathroom cabinet under the sink, the back corner of a closet, the area behind the water heater, the cardboard boxes you have not opened since you moved in. Take dry baking soda and dust it lightly into those spaces. Under the cabinet liner paper, behind the back wall of the linen closet, along the baseboard of any room that has had a moisture problem. The baking soda does two jobs here. It desiccates the silverfish that walk through it, and it absorbs the moisture that draws them in the first place. The same dusting works on drain flies. The drain fly lays its eggs in the organic buildup inside your drain pipes, the slime that collects on the inside of the pipe. Once a week, pour half a cup of baking soda down every drain in the house. Follow it with half a cup of plain white vinegar. Let the fizzing reaction run for 10 minutes. Then flush with boiling water if you have it, or the hottest tap water you can get. The fizzing action breaks down the organic slime. The drain flies lose their breeding ground. No eggs, no larvae, no flies. The fourth method is the spider barrier wash. In a spray bottle, dissolve 2 tablespoons of baking soda in 1 quart of warm water. Shake it well until the baking soda is fully dissolved. Spray this solution along every baseboard in the house, around every window frame, across every door threshold, around the perimeter of the basement walls. Let it dry without wiping. As it dries, it leaves a faint alkaline residue that spiders find deeply unpleasant to walk across. Do this once a month during the seasons when spiders are active. The webs come down, and more importantly, the spiders that would have built them find another house to move into. The fifth method is the mouse deterrent. This one is the simplest. Take dry baking soda plain from the box and pack it into every gap, crack, and entry point you can find along the base of your exterior walls. Where the pipe enters the kitchen cabinet, where the wire comes through the wall behind the refrigerator, where the siding meets the foundation. You are not trying to create a permanent plug, you are trying to make those entry points smell wrong to a mouse. A mouse investigating a gap packed with baking soda will back away. The nose of a mouse is its best tool for finding safe passage, and baking soda reads as danger to that nose. Pair the deterrent with steel wool packed into any gap larger than a dime. A mouse can chew through wood and foam and caulk. She cannot chew through steel wool. Baking soda sends her away from the gap. Steel wool stops her from pushing through it. Together they are the old farmhouse seal. The sixth method, and this one surprises most folks, is for bedbugs. I want to be honest here because this is where the limitations matter most and where I will not overstate what baking soda can do. Baking soda does not cure a true bedbug infestation on its own. If you have bedbugs in your mattress and your box spring and your baseboards, you need a serious protocol and sometimes professional heat treatment. What baking soda does, and does honestly, is act as a desiccant on the bedbug's soft outer shell. Dusted heavily along the seams of a mattress, along baseboards, behind headboards, baking soda draws moisture from the bedbugs that crawl through it. It slows them and kills some portion of them over time. Used as part of a full protocol, washing all bedding on the hottest water and drying on the hottest dryer setting, vacuuming every seam and surface, encasing the mattress in a zippered cover, and dusting with baking soda as a desiccant layer under the encasement, it does real work. On its own, it is not enough. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. But as part of the protocol, it earns its place. The seventh method covers the pantry pests. Flour beetles, grain moths, weevils, the small creatures that get into your flour and your cornmeal and your bag of rice. Baking soda is not a killer for these in the traditional bait sense, but it is a repellent and a deodorizer. A small open dish of baking soda placed inside a sealed pantry cabinet absorbs the moisture and the food odors that draw pantry pests in. Wipe down every pantry shelf with a baking soda spray, the same 2 tablespoons per quart of water I gave you for the spiders. Let it dry. Transfer your dry goods into sealed glass or hard plastic containers. The combination of an alkaline, clean-smelling shelf and no accessible loose grain makes your pantry a poor prospect for any bug looking for a place to settle. Now I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters. Look at what we have just walked through. One ingredient, the orange box that costs less than $1 at any grocery store in this country, used 7 different ways for 7 different categories of pests. Roaches baited and killed by their own appetite. Ant trails broken so the column never reaches the counter. Silverfish desiccated in the dark corners they live in. Drain flies cut off from their breeding ground. Spiders persuaded to find another house. Mice turned back from the gaps in your foundation. Bedbugs slowed as part of a proper protocol. Pantry pests denied the moisture and odor that drew them in. The pest control company that sends the man in the white truck will tell you that baking soda is a home remedy and home remedies do not work. What he will not tell you is that the main ingredient in many of the powders he dusts in your kitchen cabinets is borax, a close alkaline cousin to baking soda, at 10 times the price, with a brand name on the bag. The chemistry is not different in kind. The markup is different. There is no money in telling a homeowner to use the orange box in her pantry. There is a great deal of money in selling her a quarterly pest contract for $300 and a promise that the truck will come back in the spring. So, nobody runs a commercial for baking soda as a pest control method. The grocery store does not put a sign in the baking aisle that says, "Here is the same active chemistry as what the pest man is charging you for." The knowledge sits in the old housekeeping books, in the farming almanacs, in the heads of the women who kept houses clean for generations without a service contract. Esther's grandmother never called an exterminator in her life. Her kitchen and her cellar were clean and tight because she knew where the creatures lived, what drew them in, and what sent them back out. That knowledge is older than the pest control industry. It is older than the chemicals they use, and it costs less than $1 a box. So here is what I want you to do this week. Start with roaches if you have them. Mix 1 tablespoon of baking soda with 1 tablespoon of white sugar and 1 tablespoon of flour. Divide it into small piles no bigger than a 1/4 teaspoon each. Place them in the dark, warm places, behind the stove, under the refrigerator, inside the cabinet, under the sink, along the bathroom baseboard. Replace them every few days for 3 weeks and watch what changes. If ants are the problem, sprinkle a fine line of dry baking soda across every trail you can find and pack the entry points where they come in. Mix a second bait of baking soda and powdered sugar in equal parts and leave small piles near those same entry points. If spiders are the problem, mix 2 tablespoons of baking soda in a quart of warm water and spray every baseboard, window frame, and door threshold in the house. Let it dry and repeat once a month. Walk your exterior foundation and pack baking soda into every gap you find. Put steel wool behind it. Do those 3 things in the first week and you will see a change before the week is out. Tell me in the comments below, which pest has been the worst in your house this year? The roaches in the kitchen, the ants coming in under the door, the spiders in the basement, the mice scratching behind the walls in November. And if your grandmother or your mother had a household trick for keeping the pests out that did not come from a can, share it. Those old methods are exactly the kind of knowledge that disappears when nobody writes it down. And the comments on this video are how we save them. I read every single one. And if you want every method I showed you today written down, with the ratios and the recipes and the pest-by-pest notes, the book is right below in the comments section. Next time, since we have been speaking of how to keep a clean and tight house without paying for what you do not need, I am going to show you the old way my people keep mice and rats out of the granary and the home. The simple traps, the doorway tricks, and the small habits that mean you never have a rodent problem in the first place. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, open the pantry, find the orange box, And remember that the pest control industry was built on one simple fact, that most folks were never told they already had the answer on their own shelf.